Hello, everyone, and happy Dress in Blue Day. If you're not wearing blue, we won't hold it against you, but there is still time to change and post your selfies with the hashtag Dress in Blue Day. My name is Jenna DePellegrini from American University Students Against Colorectal Cancer. Thank you for attending the Colorectal Cancer Alliance's Blue Bag Lunch. The Alliance has partnered with my portfolio class, Students Against Colorectal Cancer, here at American University in Washington, D.C., to help put an end to colorectal cancer by raising awareness of preventative measures that save lives. The Blue Bag Lunch is about awareness and education. You will hear from experts on colorectal cancer and those who are working to end it, and have an opportunity to ask a doctor questions and learn how we can address colorectal cancer disparities within the African American community. And if there's one thing you should take away from this event, it's that screening saves lives. We encourage you to take the Alliance's screening pledge at pledge.getscreened.org. You can even do it now. It only takes a minute. This event is inspired in part by the life and death of the beloved actor Chadwick Boseman, who shone brightly on screen and off while battling colorectal cancer. His death inspired us to do something about this disease. In 2016, Chadwick Boseman was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. An icon of the African American film industry who starred as T'Challa in Black Panther, Jackie Robinson in the film 42, and the first African American Supreme Court Justice and Civil Rights leader Thurgood Marshall in the film Marshall, among other roles that he filmed and played while battling colorectal cancer, Boseman was an icon and a pioneer of our modern film age. Boseman was also posthumously awarded a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor this past week for his role in the film Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Boseman was a hero to myself, a Hispanic woman aspiring to enter the entertainment field and communications, and to many other young children and adults looking on as well. His loss shocked the world and introduced millions to this life-changing disease. Boseman's life and death has allowed us to reflect on this disease and break the silence around colorectal cancer, available treatment options, and the importance of getting screened. Increasing screening is one way the Colorectal Cancer Alliance plans to achieve its vision of ending colorectal cancer in our lifetime. This awesome video featuring a beloved co-founder of the Alliance, Jeannie Moore, tells us more.
How do you cure colorectal cancer? No, wait. Let me rephrase that. How do you eradicate this senseless killer known as colorectal cancer from the face of the earth so that it never, ever hurts another loved one, ever, ever, ever again? In 1998, my mom was diagnosed, and I didn't know anything about colorectal cancer. I somehow found myself talking on a listserv for colon cancer patients, and I realized there was no organization to call to get help. And that's crazy, because colorectal cancer isn't some little problem. It's the second leading cause of cancer deaths in men and women combined, and kills over 50,000 people each year. Well, a few of us decided we needed to do something about that. We started a national helpline so people with questions like mine would have someone to talk to. Then we trained volunteers to support patients and their loved ones with how to live with this disease. And for people needing financial assistance, we started a fund to get them screened and help them with the cost of treatments. And we needed to raise awareness. We started undie runs in Philly, Dallas, and Phoenix, and then nationwide. Want to get people's attention? Try running through the streets in your underwear. That'll do it. Each year, we met thousands of people across the United States who wanted to help others. People like Vicky, who had a passion for the life-saving power of screening, and Steve, who learned how to be a caregiver for his wife Yvette to help her manage her journey, and Cynthia, a patient who used clinical trials to become a living testament to scientific innovation for a cure. This model of screen, care, cure has become our mission statement. And every person who joins us to eliminate this disease, we call them allies, because that is what they truly are. We started as 1,000, now we are close to 1 million strong. A network of volunteers with our sleeves rolled up and our hearts ready to support everyone who needs our help. And that is how we will defeat colorectal cancer.
With the strength of an alliance.
Built together, one family at a time.
all of us one.
We are the Colorectal Cancer Alliance.
And now, to tell us more, I'd like to welcome to the virtual stage the Alliance CEO, Michael Sapienza.
Thank you, Jenna, and congratulations to you and all of your fellow classmates. We're so excited to partner with you. Just to give you a little background about myself. Unfortunately, my mom was diagnosed in 2006 with colorectal cancer and died in 2009 of the disease. And our family said, why isn't this on the television? Why are we seeing pink ribbons everywhere when we don't see the blue ribbons, right? Or we don't hear people talking about colon cancer. And, what did we do? We founded an organization called the CRISPR for Life Colon Cancer Foundation. And about 4 years later, became the second largest in the country and actually merged with the Colon Cancer Alliance. And now we're the largest advocacy organization in the world for colorectal cancer. And as you heard in the video with Jeannie, who is one of our now retired wonderful founders and navigators, who I know touched lots of people that I'm sure are listening and watching today. If you think about what she was able to do is really exciting. But the three pieces I think are most important is you think about our organization. We help people get screened, right? So this disease is 90% preventable when caught early. Number two is care. So how many patients are currently living in the United States, et cetera. We have almost 1.4 million American colorectal cancer survivors in this country, and they need our support, whether that's psychosocial, whether that's medical advocacy. So what type of biomarkers do I have? How do I get better surgery? How do I know all the things that are going to really help me increase my chances of survival, living high quality of life while I'm, in this fight, et cetera. And then our third program is the cure. And that's just simply, how do we end this disease in our lifetime from a cure perspective? So last year, blood cancers, or what we call leukemia lymphoma cancers, they saw almost 22 new FDA approvals for new drugs or new ways to treat those patients. Well, colorectal cancers only saw 2 new drugs. So we have to put more money into research, and we have to make sure that this disease stops before it affects people. But that doesn't answer the whole young onset piece, right, Jenna? So people under the age of 50 are getting diagnosed about 2% more each year. It's now the #1 cancer killer for men in this country under 50 and #2 for women under 50. We know about Chadwick Boseman. For those of you that know Craig Melvin from the Today Show, he just did a wonderful piece this morning. His brother Lawrence also passed away in his early 40s. And, the first patient I met after my mom died was in her 30s as well. So I always say this, we're now recommending starting screening at the age of 45. We're hoping very soon that the preventative task force, or we say the gods that help the insurance companies cover these tests, are going to actually come firm with covering everybody at the age of 45. We have draft recommendations. We have to have full recommendations. And then what do we do about people that are younger than 45? Well, this is what I would say, Jenna, is if you have any of the following symptoms: blood in your stool, change in bowel habits, cramping, unexpected weight loss, et cetera, don't wait to see a doctor. Make sure you go in and get your own advocate, because about 85% of young onset patients have seen an average of 3 doctors before they get diagnosed with the disease. And what that means is when they first went in, they probably were early stage, but when they actually were treated or allowed to get a colonoscopy, they were later stage. So, I just really, encourage our young advocates that are on the line here to be your own advocate and really think through if you have these symptoms. The last thing I would say is, just in this vein of health inequality. The Alliance has really put a stake in the ground. So, especially African Americans, and Hispanic Americans and Native Americans, and African Americans, about 20% increased chance of getting the disease and 40% increased chance of passing away from the disease. We have to do more to get those people screened. We have to do more in sending that message. We actually today and next week going to be announcing $2.4 million worth of free screening tests for people in underserved communities. So that we got that from Black Health and Cottonelle Partnership, got that from a group called Let's Get Checked, who's doing fit tests, and our wonderful partners at Exact Sciences with their Cologuard test. So we're really excited. We'll be able to screen almost 20,000 people for free over the next 9 months. So I encourage you, as Jenna, you said, pledge.getscreened.org. I saw some of the comments too about, when the video was happening about the old Undie Run. Well, I just want to make sure that people know we still have a walk, and it's called the Walk to End Colon Cancer. And it's in almost every city we had it before. So again, I encourage people to visit ccalliance.org. And again, the pledge.getscreened.org. And Jenna, I can't thank you enough for doing this. When my mom died from this disease, it was barely talked about, and there certainly wasn't Facebook Live, et cetera. And if she would have gotten screened at age 50, and now that 45 is the new 50, she would have been able to see me get married, and she would be here today. So thank you again.
I am very sorry for your loss, and your story really inspires everybody listening here today. So thank you so much for talking more about what the Alliance does, how you're helping all of those within your community, and just for all the hard work that you're putting in every day to make sure that you save as many lives as possible and you support as many people as possible. So thank you so much, Mr. Sapienza.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you. And the death of a loved one is something that always stays with us. We are so thankful that Michael has turned his loss into a benefit for so many people. And as Michael noted, colorectal cancer can be prevented with regular screening. A close look into your family's medical history and some research on what you can do to change in your daily life can help prevent yourself and a loved one from contracting the disease. Here to tell us a little bit more about screening is Dr. Valerie Lee, a medical oncologist with the Johns Hopkins Sidney Kimmel Cancer Society at Sibley Memorial Hospital.
Hi, I'm Valerie Lee. I'm a medical oncologist at the Johns Hopkins Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Sibley Memorial Hospital. I want to talk with you today about colorectal cancer. These are cancers of the large intestine or rectum, and it's a big deal since it affects over 145,000 Americans every year. That includes people over the age of 50, but a lot of young patients as well. The best way to go and prevent colon cancer is to get screened. American Cancer Society recommends that people over the age of 45 should go for routine screening. But people who are high risk, so if you have a strong family history or inflammatory bowel disease, or you have a lot of symptoms, you should talk with your doctor about whether or not you should be getting screening earlier. There's a number of different methods. You should really talk with your doctor and they can think about whether or not you're a good person to go and just get a stool test. Sometimes there are special types of CT scans or colonoscopies, and they can discuss which one is best for you. I think it's really important to get screened because I'm a medical oncologist, so I end up treating people who have cancer at this time. And while some people we catch at a really early stage and we hope to cure them, sometimes it's more advanced. And the best way to go and really cure cancer and really run it down to zero is to prevent it from ever happening. So thank you for your time, and please go get screened.
And now, to answer a few more questions about screening, I'd like to welcome to the virtual stage the Alliance's Senior Director of Screening, Trudy Loper. Hi, Trudy.
Hi, Jenna. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So we just heard that all Americans should get screened for colorectal cancer at age 45. But is there ever a reason to go earlier than that?
Absolutely. And I think that both Michael and Dr. Lee have touched on this, but just to reiterate, if you're experiencing any symptoms, that is the time to contact a doctor directly so that they can determine whether or not any diagnostic testing is needed. And unfortunately, as Michael said, especially with our younger patients, they may need to go to the doctor multiple times or seek a second or even a third opinion to make sure that they're really advocating for themselves. But then there's also folks who are at higher risk. And I will consider myself one of those. I was actually experiencing symptoms and did not realize that I actually had family history until I was literally in the doctor's waiting room texting my parents asking, have you ever had a positive like polyp? Have you been positive for colorectal cancer? So family history is huge, and knowing that family history, because even when our relatives have been screened, sometimes that information doesn't funnel down. So really asking that question. Dr. Lee and Michael both also talked about the hereditary diseases, so like Lynch syndrome, as well as some comorbidities like an irritable bowel syndrome. So having an understanding of that is really critical. And there are tools to help you understand what are the questions that I need to be asking, both on our website at pledge.getscreened.org, as well as we have a survey that can help people understand what screening options are best for them.
So I think a lot of people have heard about colonoscopies, but are there any other screening methods available?
Absolutely. And so I will say this with the caveat that if anyone is either having symptoms or has one of those high risk factors, talking to their doctor and colonoscopy are probably the best test for them, because that really is, there's something that puts them in that higher risk category. But the majority of Americans actually are what we call average risk, meaning that they have no symptoms, they have no family history, et cetera. And so those tests range from stool-based tests. So some people may have heard about a FIT test, or even a stool DNA test, most commonly known as Cologuard by that brand name. And then there are also other visual exams like a sigmoidoscopy, one that's called a virtual colonoscopy, which is called a CT colonography. So there are many options. What I think is really compelling, especially right now, is that if you have any concerns about going into a doctor's office, these at-home stool-based tests are really a way to ensure that you're not delaying a screening, because the concern we have is that if people are delaying, we're missing diagnoses.
And then lastly, how can people just learn more about screening in general?
Absolutely. There are a lot of resources. I know that our website is in the bottom here, but if you go to pledge.getscreened.org, what you will find there is the pledge to get screened. And we do really strongly suggest that you take that pledge. Screening is important. It saves lives. On that page as well are links to the survey that I mentioned before, so you can receive a personalized screening recommendation, as well as educational links to educational materials on the different types of tests and some frequently asked questions.
Thank you so much, Trudy, for your time and for answering these important questions about the screening process. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jenna.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Lindsay Norris, an oncology nurse from Kansas City. Working intimately with those diagnosed with cancer, you quickly find how sneaky and unforgiving this disease can be. The countless patients I've spent time with and cared for over the last 12 years, I really thought I understood what it felt like to be a cancer patient. I had no idea. About 4 months after giving birth to my second child, I noticed the GI postpartum symptoms I was having were not resolving. I decided to see a colorectal surgeon. I was diagnosed with stage 3C rectal cancer. Upon hearing the news for the first time, I immediately thought, so this is what it feels like to sit in this chair. I had been a part of those conversations as a nurse countless times before, and it felt surreal to be the patient we were creating a treatment plan for. My treatment plan had plenty of surprises, delays, and twists and turns, but today I sit here 4 years cancer-free and counting. There are many lessons I've learned from my experience as a cancer nurse and patient that I would love to share with you. Sharing stories reminds us of why we show up for each other every day. Sharing stories connects us. It gives others hope, and it honors those whose stories didn't have as many chapters as they should have. So thank you for having me today to share some of my story.
Now, the Colorectal Cancer Alliance revolves around their nation of allies, patients, survivors, caregivers, and family members who make up the colorectal cancer community. And we are thrilled to have one of those allies with us today. Ms. Lindsay Norris is an oncology nurse and a colorectal cancer survivor. So I would like to welcome to the virtual stage, Miss Norris.
Hey there.
Thank
Happy
you.
Dress in Blue Day.
Happy Dress in Blue Day. Thank you for being here. I do have a couple questions if you don't mind answering.
Yes, of course.
So I have to ask, how did you feel when you were first diagnosed with colorectal cancer?
I think complete shock doesn't even start to explain it. It's not something that even crossed my mind when I was having postpartum symptoms, GI upset, trouble with my bowels. I just, thought it was all normal pregnancy changes, and so did my OB. And even working in oncology for as long as I had, and even knowing that younger people get diagnosed more and more each year, it still was not something that was on my radar. And so it was a very surreal experience to have the team that I work alongside with turning their attention towards me now to come up with a care plan and to have to take care of one of our own, take care of me.
So then what did you do to help yourself remain positive during this time?
Um, I focused on my family. I focused on my work family as well. And then I also gave myself permission to not be positive 100% of the time, too. You're going to have days where you feel really strong and that you can conquer the world. And then, without a notice, one little thing could trigger you. Like, my son saying, "Oh, when I'm a daddy, I want to do this." And, that pings your heart and you're saying, "Oh, well, I want to see that. I hope I'm here for that." Um, so things can come at you without warning. And, I think I just learned to give myself a little grace, learn to sit in the feelings, lean on the fellow survivors that I've met along the way. We call them the CRC girls that I chat with often, that I met in my area. And just, using those resources at my health center and in my community, to not try to push every feeling under the rug, and to, you know, really explore all of those options, and um, one step ahead of the other, one foot in front of
Mhm.
the other, and just onward is all you can do.
Looking back on it now, what advice would you give your past self and to others who are going through the same thing right now?
I think listening to your body is important. Uh, Thinking back, maybe I knew that there was something that wasn't quite right, but it just didn't add up. I always thought, oh, common things happen commonly, so that's not going to happen to me. I know all of the signs and symptoms. I wasn't too concerned about that. But knowing that it can touch anyone. It doesn't care if you're an oncology nurse. It doesn't care if you're a brand new mom. It doesn't
Mhm.
care if you have family that needs you. Um, you know, don't count yourself out just because it doesn't add up. Always think of that. And then my biggest pieces of advice for people who are brand new, diagnosed is, um, as hard as this may be, try not to think so much about the outcome in your future. Finding the beauty of the process and just doing everything you can each day to fight against this disease just to get to the next day. That's something you can really be proud of. When I focused on the future too much, 2 years, 5 years, the eventual end of my life, it was just very overwhelming. And I felt a lot of comfort in, just kind of, as cheesy as it sounds, that one step at a time approach.
So thank you so much for being here today, Lindsay, and for sharing your story with everybody who's tuning into our live stream. You are truly an inspiration, not only to me listening in on your story, but to every other colorectal cancer alliance ally and other patients who have been affected by this disease as well. So I do hope that you continue to be cancer free and that you have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now it is also extremely important to know and take action on the fact that African Americans have the highest rates of colorectal cancer of any racial or ethnic group in the United States. They are both 20% more likely to get colorectal cancer and 40% more likely to die from the disease than non-Hispanic whites. Here to answer and discuss this more, I'd like to welcome to the stage Ms. Kajida Amin, the co-founder of Black Health, to discuss the disparities within colorectal cancer. So thank you so much for being here, Ms. Amin.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to be here.
So, could you talk a little bit more about your organization, Black Health, and why your work is so important to the communities that you support and advocate for?
Sure, absolutely. So Black Health is a community-based organization located in Atlanta, Georgia, and our mission is to critically engage and challenge racism and its impact on Black health. And so we've been doing that through digital health education, community health events, consulting, and workshops and trainings to current and future health professionals. And given our mission to challenge the impact of racism on different Black health outcomes, we are really excited to be partnering with Cottonelle on the Good Down There campaign to reduce barriers to prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of colorectal cancer in Black communities by providing educational materials and access to complimentary colorectal cancer screenings and follow-up care. And we are also really excited to be partnering with Colorectal Cancer Alliance and Cottonelle to provide financial assistance to Black patients in need of colonoscopies.
So, then could you explain a little bit more what disparities or racism in treatment for cancer look like in our society today?
Yeah, absolutely. And so here at Black Health, we really push for the root cause of racial health inequities being rooted in racism. And so we know that racism impacts the ability of Black people to reach optimal health and well-being by disproportionately structuring our access to health protective resources like livable wage jobs, healthy foods, affordable health insurance, and quality medical care. And so we know that these factors also impact our prevention, detection, and treatment of colorectal cancer. And we see that in the outcomes. So Black Americans are 20% more likely to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer and 40% more likely to die from colorectal cancer than other racial groups. We are also more likely to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer at a younger age and with a more advanced disease state.
So, then what can medical organizations and institutions do to help lessen the impact of these disparities or to close the gap?
Yeah, so I think it first would take acknowledging where these disparities and equities are coming from and acknowledging the role of racism in disparate health outcomes that Black people face, and really critically practicing cultural humility and structural safety, and really analyzing where their institution and organization may be perpetuating racism and unjust treatment towards marginalized patients, and what forms of accountability and quality improvement practices they can incorporate to improve their care towards all patients.
And how can students like myself entering into advocacy and medical fields contribute towards making sure that all patients, no matter their race or ethnicity, get the treatment and medical care that they need when diagnosed with something like colorectal cancer?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing that students can do is educate yourselves about the connection between race, racism, and health, and really push your academic institutions to incorporate concepts of racism and health in curriculums. That's really critical at that early stage. I would also encourage students and young folks through the Go Down There campaign with Black Health and Cottonelle to actually gift at-home colorectal screening kit to a loved one and tag friends and family on social media to do the same using the hashtag Go Down There. So folks can get the at-home colorectal screening kits for themselves or for loved ones through our website, blackhealth.com/Cottonelle.
definitely promote that and promote it amongst loved ones, friends, and other family members. So thank you so much for being here and answering my questions today, Ms. Amin. Your work is truly necessary right now, and I'm really glad that we were able to speak with you a bit more on this very important subject within the medical community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you. Now, we all know colorectal cancer is complicated. The Alliance provides numerous resources for patients, survivors, and caregivers at ccalliance.org, but sometimes it really helps to ask specific questions to a specifically qualified person. So to help, I would like to welcome to the virtual stage Dr. Vinay Rao. Dr. Rao is an internal medicine resident at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia. He was educated at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland and George Washington University here in DC. And Dr. Rao is also the cousin of one of my colleagues at Students Against Colorectal Cancer, Amrutha Chatty. So I would first like to ask all of our live stream virtual guests to drop any questions they might have for Dr. Rao in the chat box wherever they're live streaming from, and we can display them on the screen so we can make sure that Dr. Rao answers as many questions that you might have. So thank you both for coming and being here for this discussion. I first have a question for Amrutha. Why does your cousin make a good doctor?
Well, I've known Dr. Rao as Vinay for my whole life as my older cousin, and while I've obviously never been his patient and never seen his work, I know firsthand just how caring and hardworking he is to everyone in his life, but especially with his patients. Dr. Rao is so dedicated to medicine, but especially dedicated to making sure that his patients have comfortable experiences, even going so far as to order them food if they have dietary restrictions and don't want to put up with the hospital food. So I know that his care for patients and how hard he works and how dedicated he is makes him a wonderful doctor. And I know that just as he continues to go throughout the medical profession, he'll bring that same dedication to treating all his patients.
Thank you, Amrutha. That was really nice. So now, as I open the floor to our audience for questions, I now have questions for Dr. Rao, if you don't mind answering.
Of course.
I would first like to ask, what are the symptoms of colorectal cancer? And if somebody is exhibiting symptoms, what should they do about it?
Sure. Well, thank you first for having me, Jenna. Thank you, Amrutha, for the kind words. And thank you to the Colorectal Cancer Alliance for helping put on this amazing event today. In regards to your first question, patients can present in a number of different ways. And what can sometimes be a little scary is that more often than not, sometimes patients may have no symptoms at all, which is why it's extremely important to, get screening at the appropriate time, or if you have a family history, get screened accordingly. But typically, patients can present in a couple of different ways. One of the most common symptoms patients can have is a change in bowel habit that is something that's off of your norm. So you might feel more like you're having trouble having bowel movements, so you might have more frequent bowel movements than you're used to. Blood in the stool can also be, especially bright red blood in the stool that is persistent and often is combined with these bowel changes, can also be present as well and can be an indication that something is potentially off. Unexplained iron deficiency anemia is also a big indicator. You can sometimes lose a lot of iron in the blood. With anemia, you can feel symptoms of fatigue, weakness. Sometimes it can get so severe that you have a syncopal event, like you faint or you fall. In those situations, it's sometimes important to, rather than reaching out to a primary care doctor who can kind of help you navigate the system, it might be best to sometimes go to the emergency room in those situations and get, a faster workup and faster diagnosis.
So then I know heading into the medical office and meeting with your doctor can be very intimidating, even for a regular checkup. So what are some good questions for people to ask their doctor about their colorectal cancer risk as they're going in for regular screening, or if they have any concerns about it?
Sure. No, it's a really good question. It can be sometimes very nerve-wracking to meet a doctor for the first time and feel like you have to have everything kind of together and, be a little unsure in terms of how they're going to help you navigate the healthcare system and work with you as a patient. And it is a collaborative relationship. One of the best ways, especially for GI doctors, is it always helps when patients come with a lot of questions, and it always helps when they also come with the good history of, their personal history, their symptoms over the most recent days to weeks, even months, as well as a really, really good family history from both sides of your family related to any cancer history, especially colorectal cancer, any inflammatory bowel disease history like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, any IBS, any history of weird or abnormal polyps in prior colonoscopies for your parents, which is something, you know, we wouldn't always think of asking our family members about, but can be very helpful when talking with a GI doctor about this. And then obviously, you know, asking them about the important questions like screening questions. Like, first of all, is it an appropriate time to get screened? And if not, when would that appropriate time be? And asking questions about what would preparation for screening be like, and who would do the test? Would it be that doctor that you're talking to right then and there, or would it be someone else? And, you know, what are the steps that you and your family members would need to take to make sure that you know, are screened appropriately as well? And so obviously that's kind of those are all questions that you can ask before, you know, coming up with the diagnosis, if at all, but there's always a whole set of questions that will come in the interim or the follow-up if there is a true diagnosis of colorectal cancer in the future.
So now Kelly says that she's afraid her doctors aren't aggressive enough. She's at stage 4. She hasn't had surgery. She's had chemo only. She wants to know, how hard should she push if she feels like they aren't being aggressive enough?
Sure, it's a very good question. You know, sometimes, especially at stage 4 cancer, it can sometimes be very tough to manage on a personal level. And then those discussions become very important with your doctor. There are obviously reasons why patients may not be ideal surgical candidates. Maybe that's possible that the risk of surgery outweighs the benefit in terms of, you know, quality of life after the surgery. In terms of the chemotherapy that she mentioned, there are some options for what's called like palliative chemotherapy, just to reduce down the size of or the bulk of the tumor sometimes before you can consider surgery. And so I think it would be, you know, what would be important is talking with the doctor about, you know, these steps that are obviously going to come. If you're going to get chemotherapy, what would follow? Like, would surgery be an amenable option in the future? And is this something to consider? Maybe the doctor has not fully explained all the options that are, you know, forthcoming and that are like still yet to come. And so, and then still, you know, obviously if you are not fully like happy with what your physician is telling you, it's always okay to get a second opinion and ask around, and even ask friends and family who have, you know, gone through similar situations, what they've done in those situations too.
And then Nana says, Dr. Rao, are there any dietary or health choices we can make in our daily lives to maintain a healthy colon?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the things I'll say is diet, exercise, sleep, they can obviously play a very large role in helping prevent cancer as a whole. But, you know, when you're talking about gut cancers, you know, cancer of that affects your intestines, especially your small bowel and rectum, that can be, you know, even more important. And so there are factors that we obviously cannot control, things like, you know, biologic sex and race and, you know, past medical history, like heart disease, kidney disease, things like that. But things that we can control are our diet and exercise, like you had asked about. So things like there is evidence to suggest that, you know, vegetarian diets can be helpful, and more importantly than that, avoiding red and processed meats. So that's things like smoked meats, salted, fermented, cured meats, things that like can develop that like residue and crust when you're frying them up or grilling them. You know, obviously on a once in a while basis, no harm, but there is good evidence now to suggest that the carcinogens in those, when you're cooking them over a long period of time, daily, up to over 50 grams a day for years and years and years, can actually you know, lead to an increased risk of colorectal cancer. Things like tobacco use have a very direct line in terms of leading to colorectal cancer. So avoiding smoking, you know, excessive alcohol use can also potentially lead to higher risk for colorectal cancer. So in moderation when it comes to alcohol. Things like physical activity, actually regular physical activity can decrease both proximal and distal colorectal cancer diagnoses by up to 25%. And so that's definitely something to, you know, on top of diet, can also be really helpful. High fiber has been shown to, rather not high fiber, I should say, but, you know, a moderate amount of fiber in the daily diet can actually contribute to lower risk of colorectal cancer. And then obviously adequate calcium, vitamin D consumption as well can help. And then when it comes to like fruits and vegetables and like the actual like type of diet, there is some evidence to suggest that at least over 100 grams of fruits and vegetables a day, which really, if you think about it, an apple is already 200 grams of fruit in a day. So if you think about it, an apple a day could potentially keep the GI doctor away up until appropriate screening time. So things like diet and exercise and nutrition can make a big impact.
I guess that saying has lived on for a reason. So I think we have time for one more question. Julissa would like to know, am I at risk even though no one in my family has had colon cancer?
That's a really good question. Sometimes it's tough to know, because colon cancer can be what we call sporadic. So it can come as like other types of cancer can be random, but can also have a family history. And even if you don't have a direct family history, it's possible that family members could have had abnormal polyps that they have never mentioned about. They could have had a history of ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, or even like a polyposis syndrome, like Lynch syndrome or something that hasn't been discussed with family members. And so, the best option I could recommend for in those specific situations where there isn't a direct family history is to still reach out to your primary care physician, who can get you linked up with a GI doctor if you have a lot of questions, and based on your risk factors can potentially get you screened at the appropriate time, whether that's 45, 50 or earlier.
So thank you so much for your time here today, Dr. Rao. Your insight has really been helpful, and I hope that everybody listening feels a bit more comfortable either asking questions to their doctor or making changes that they know can help decrease their risk of getting colorectal cancer. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Jenna. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So now, as our program winds down, I would like to welcome some messages from my colleagues in my portfolio class at Students Against Colorectal Cancer to speak more on the projects that they're currently working on to help with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance's mission as well.
Hello, my name is Hunter. We are really excited to do this work after the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, and we're hoping that through raising awareness and getting more people screened, we can decrease the impact of the disease on the population.
Colorectal cancer is one of the most preventable and treatable forms of cancer. Raising awareness about colon cancer and getting screened can help us save lives.
And we started this campaign because we know that it's very important for college students to tell their parents the importance of taking a pledge for colorectal cancer.
And I think it's important to sign the pledge because colorectal cancer is the third most common cancer in men and women each year in the United States.
And after some research, we found that colorectal cancer has been affecting younger populations more and more each year.
In order to spread awareness and grow an audience unified against ending colorectal cancer, we've created a social media campaign in correlation with our mission to achieve 10,000 pledges to be screened. Follow us, Students Against Colorectal Cancer, for more information on colorectal cancer resources.
Hi, we're Team 3, the social media influencers and PSA group. We've been working closely with the CCA to help further their promotional efforts through influencer outreach and documenting our class's experience on our Students Against Colorectal Cancer blog.
We've been creating some content that's being used during today's event. Thanks so much for being here. We urge you all to take the pledge and check out our blog.
So thank you everybody who was tuning in. That does it for our first ever Blue Bag Lunch. I would like to thank everyone who tuned in to our live stream luncheon. I would also like to thank the Alliance for allowing my portfolio class to partner with them and plan and execute this fantastic event on this year's Dress in Blue Day, and to all of our amazing keynote speakers and medical professionals who were able to come and share their insight and wisdom to all of you. And a huge thank you specifically to our portfolio professor, Gemma Puglisi at American University. She has been instrumental towards our success today and in all of our endeavors this year. So a huge thank you to her help and support throughout our senior portfolio campaign. And again, on behalf of my colleagues at my portfolio class, Students Against Colorectal Cancer at American University, thank you for joining us, and please take the pledge to get screened. Have a great day, everybody.